Okay, cool. Let's kick it off. My name is Julia Murray. I'm the marketing director at Grassroots Analytics, and I'm joined by Madeline Hamerski. She's a senior digital strategist here at Grassroots. And I can't wait to pass it over to her to hear about some deadline driven and donor led fundraising moments. So, just some quick housekeeping things for the folks that are joining us. We are going to be chatting for between 15 and 20 minutes here. The total webinar should be about 30 minutes, and we're ending with a question and answer portion so that you can get your questions about deadline fundraising answered from a great expert here, Madeline. So we'll just quickly go over those intros again, and then we have three kind of portions about these different strategies, starting with mapping out the month, taking a look at the whole month ahead of you before the end gets here. And then we're talking specifically about content creation and what that looks like for people who are digital fundraisers and really need to churn content out the door. And then we're really talking about the last days of the month and like what happens in that crunch time right before the deadline. And then of course we're ending with the Q&A. Great. And for the folks that just joined, again, here's who we are. I'm Julia. I'm the marketing director at Grassroots. Before that, I worked on our fundraising sales team. And before that, I worked on campaigns across New England and New York. And I'll pass it over to Madeline to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Madeline Hamerski. I'm a senior digital strategist here at GA. I originally started with GA a little over 2 years ago as a digital associate and have been working across our DigiLab and digital products since then, specifically running a couple of accounts and working in tangent with other owners as well. Amazing. We'll hop right into it then, unless I missed anything else, Julia.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So hopping right into it, I think when we think about email fundraising and text fundraising overall for your month, we want to start with looking at your past month. You want to think about what worked well, what didn't work well. Where can you pivot? Where can you grow? I think looking from an email fundraising and your email fundraising calendar as the starting point before your month starts is where I always start. So, big things to think about. Your overall email domain. So, what are your spam rates? How are you doing? Did you maybe send a little too aggressively last month and spam rates increased? And so this month you're thinking, I'm going to lower that volume, make sure that my emails are actually getting to the people who want to read them and see them. By creating a slower pace throughout the month, or maybe you realize, hey, we started picking up a lot of momentum at the end of the month as we sent more and more. People were responding really well to our messaging. People were donating. I think that we can do a really big push as we get into like EOQ or EOM, any of those big moments where you can start increasing that pace and adding on. So adding more than you might before, being a little more aggressive with that strategy. So for that actual planning of a month, I'm going to show you how I am using Queller a lot of the time to create a calendar. So from my Elmo workspace that we're going to use as an example, I create a new calendar. So if I'm sitting down at the beginning of the month in August or in July looking at August, I'm thinking I'm going to send all of August. And last month, my domain rep was in great shape. I saw donations coming in with every email sent. People were clicking on the links. People were really engaging with the content that I was putting out there. So I'm thinking I'm going to be a little more aggressive this month. I think that we have a real avenue to capitalize on the donors who have already shown interest, already started engaging with my content. So I'm going to increase my cadence, actually a high volume, 5 times a week. And currently I'm just going to plan for email and text. So I'm going to generate a content calendar. From here, what I'm looking at for base is where can I hit that sweet spot of not overwhelming a donor, not overwhelming someone who's interested in giving to my campaign, but also making sure I'm still there in their mind as they continue to get other messaging, other donation requests from people. So I love starting the month off strong, 2 back-to-back sends. A good rule of thumb that I like to follow is try not to do more than, if you're doing a high volume of emails, that is, do more than one day without an email. So I'm going to adjust this cadence a little bit just so that I have a couple of emails, delete that one. Make sure that I have emails consistently rolling through. The nice thing about Quiller is that this adjusts automatically. And as I go through too, if I notice like here, I want to have 3 emails at the end of the month, really push out the last 3 days. I always recommend having an email every day at EOM, keeping that momentum. People are going to be sending for EOM no matter what. They might as well be getting something from you throughout that last push. So I've readjusted my calendar. As I go through here, I look at text fundraising as a nice little complement to email. Since text fundraising does often take more funds, it's important to be very strategic with where you're sending a text. So if I am looking at my account, Elmo did a really great job at donor onboarding the last month for text messages. People are donating. I have some extra cash to put towards them. I'm going to send a text every single time I send an email this month. So with Quiller, the email will already be loaded here, and I can just click over here and have the text that I'm going to send with it. Unfortunately, my screen is a little odd shaped right now. So there we go. Have the text that I'm going to send with it. Already loaded, ready for my editing. Let's say though that I want to be a little more conservative this month with my texting. I'm going to split these out. So instead of sending the email and text at the same time, I'll be emailing first. Since email is free, we're going to try to, or at a lower cost, we're going to try to not send anything for text that costs more money that didn't perform well on email. So looking at my emails as I go through the month, I'm going to stagger that out. Make sure that as we get through the month, the well-performing emails, the emails that have a high donor, high click engagement, all of that are what we're transitioning over and textifying, making them into text, altering that content so that someone who would want to donate over text is more likely to donate. That mapping out the month. So from there, as we get into the last few days of EOM, all of this is already pretty much planned for you. So mapping out the month, big overview. EOM, you'll have planned at the beginning of the month. Being prepared for EOM makes it so much less stressful because it's going to be stressful no matter what. So thinking about, hey, what are my really top big performers? What are the things that I know do well with EOM that I can lean into in those last days? Specifically, having parts of your email program that does well already. The nice thing with Quiller is specifically with having those well-performing go-to messages. In my programs, I've always like to have a couple of things I know donors love for my candidate organization. So is that they love to hear about who the biggest opponent is, the villain, that like, hey, this is what we're up against, or are they more inclined to respond to your typical invigorate a donor through a narrative arc. So for Elmo, we've set it up on Quiller at least that there are a couple go try true. His donors love a first then now, love bullet point emails, love a crazy email. So it's already set up in how messages looked to have all of that content there and ready to generate for whatever happens in a moment. Specifically with EOM, you can plan on having it just be for EOM. That EOM is the driving deadline, that end of month reporting, whatever it is, if it's end of quarter, is the big motivator there. As everybody here probably knows, that doesn't always happen. As we get closer to the end of the month, there could be some crazy thing that pops up in the news. There could be your opponent drops an attack ad, or a certain big donor comes through and donates something, some crazy numbers. Like as those things happen, having these templates and like the things that you know you can take that information and plug into is so important, as it makes it the stream from your thought process to the donor who cares about that issue that much simpler. Mm-hmm. So as we look at that from a content strategy, perspective. We touched on the try and true, leaning into that for EOM, and leaning into that with the calendar that you've built. I think specifically for a rapid response moment, I have a little demo here on how you can use those rapid response moments to create and import whatever news article that you're looking at, whatever thing, into the tool that I've been using, Quiller specifically. In this case, Jillian Brunson, kissed Elmo, big deal in the Elmo world. So we want to make sure for EOM, we are showing that Jalen and Elmo have made up and they're on good terms again. So importing that to Quiller so that it automatically writes that email that I know already will perform well with my donors and has that big pivot so that at EOM, as you are doing 1,000,010 things, this is already done and dusted from that perspective. So from all of those things, looking at like overall zoom out on specifically content creation at EOM and then the next steps that you have post, I think the thing to remember here is using the tools that you have to make sure that it's not a catch-up game, that as you go through your month, you're actively adapting to what's in the news, what is performing well and what isn't performing well. And that also might mean that if I planned out my whole month to be super high heavy, I'm like, I'm going to get all these donors. I'm going to be more aggressive than ever with my cadence of sending for email. Adjusting that is okay. Like it is okay to realize that your rate is up. I need to pull back. I need to send to like the people I know are going to click, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you get into EOM, focusing on that EOM deadline as the biggest thing. Yes. I think that was my big spiel. Julia, did I miss anything?
I would love you to kind of dive into the middle one here and talk about how much space you should leave in a calendar for things that might come up. You've been talking a lot about like using the news and, these moments that kind of creep up on us. How should one plan for that?
Yes, great point. So when you look at your calendar, how I will build out a calendar is I start with my tried and true methods, the things that I know are going to do well. My three things, my first, then, now, like all of those basic things that I have already sent. I know they've done well. I can rehash them for something that fits today's moment, fits today's push, and start with that as the base. Like when we look at the content calendar that I created here, I would say about half of these are going to be your tried and true things. Then from there, go in and think about what's happening this month. Is it July? Is 4th of July coming up? Is there a big moment that's really important to your candidate or org that you can fundraise off of? Is there a drive, some kind of like donor turnout or voter turnout push that your candidate is doing, and you need to raise funds so that you can get the volunteers water? Those big things that might not happen every single month, but are specific to that month. Then I'll fill in the calendar with probably about 2 or 3 of those, depending on the month. And from there, the rest, I'll leave blank. We know this is a crazy time to be working in politics, and there will definitely be something that happens in those moments that you'll need to fill something in. And for those fill-in moments, thinking about, I like to plan ahead by saying, oh, if something quote unquote crazy is going to happen, then we can use our crazy template and fill it in with a news article or whatever is dropped currently. And knowing that there's that pivotability and being flexible with it as well. So even though this is my calendar, I've planned it out, this is what I'm going to send. If I have a send schedule that I have all written out, but something comes up in the news that I want to send on, being able to move that back and be flexible with the actual send date, crucial to overall health of your program.
Amazing. Great roundup. I think that we can move on to the Q&A. This was, a wonderful start, but let's see if we can answer some specific questions. Okay, Madeline, we have one in here already, and a couple more are dropping as well. How do you handle both planning your end of month, but also maintaining flexibility in case something happens that you want to raise off of? I think you just touched on this a little, but yeah, give us some more info.
I'll zoom in on end of month for that if that helps. I
Yeah.
think go to like overall month planning. I think for your end of month specifically with a deadline and maybe with a big number that you feel like you need to raise or get to by the end of the month, I think understanding that it's okay to do two sends in a day if that's the situation. If
Mhm.
it's okay to amplify a certain position or perspective that you have in your back pocket and being okay to go back to either swinging big if you have the space to swing big or knowing that like if I send this specific messaging I have a guaranteed certain amount to go that I will probably raise from this email just from your personal experience. Yes.
Amazing. Um, that sounds great. Do you have any, thoughts or insight into donor fatigue, and if one of these methods, email versus text, is kind of what strategies you can use to combat donor fatigue?
Yeah, I think in digital, it's really tempting to have the perspective of send, send, send. Yes, like people can't be donating if they're not getting your message, which is very true. I think monitoring your response rates, monitoring what is coming back from going out is a great way to monitor that donor fatigue. If you're noticing that you're sending at a similar schedule as you've been sending your whole program and you're just not getting the responses that you usually do, I think it's very real to say, hey, take a step back. Do I need to do less? Is this the
Mm,
time for me to really hone in on my messaging and hone in on taking time to step back and think about the best way to communicate your goals to your donors and the best way to communicate what you're trying and what you're asking of them, and that well crafted, thought through, considered email will be worth much more than a spamming of your donors. um, I think as far as like monitoring these two things on email, there's a lot more bounce back, spam rates, all of the data nitty gritty things that you can look into. And I think then segmenting through your donors is also something that you can lean into for that. Not just sending to everybody that's on your email list, looking at who has donated to me recently. Do I really need to resolicit them in this moment for a very similar message? Or should I maybe take out people who have donated in the last 7 days or who have donated in the last 20 days? And that might help with that fatigue of people feeling like, oh, I just gave to this person. They're asking for more, even though it's just part of your overall strategy.
totally.
Same thing with text message. I think you can think about text message true, especially since a lot of the times on your text, you'll be able to see all the texts that you get. Thinking about that every text, if they're scrolling back and looking at your text messages that they're getting, is it going to be the same photo and then a very similar message? Are they going to see it and say, oh, I'm actually glad that I got that because I didn't know that thing? Or, oh, that's
Mhm.
an interesting event that they're doing. I should be engaging for this reason. So thinking about how people are receiving the message on the two platforms as well.
Got it. Amazing. Um, how would you go about turning a email that did really well into a text that might also do really well?
Ugh, well, it's very tempting to copy paste. I'll be the first to say,
Mm,
where like people are busy, it's very tempting to be like, oh, this did well, we'll send it over text. But I think it's back to the formatting and thinking about how when you get an email, the way it loads is so different. Even if it's both on your phone, the way that you see both and interact with both is very different. So paring down your email so that as someone opens a text, they're not hit with a ton of text itself, paragraph on
mm,
paragraph on paragraph, which you can get away with on email since there is that bigger space in between the lines. Bolding will be different. There aren't as many capabilities with texting as email. You can't really highlight, like, etc. On text compared to email, so that deliverability isn't affected either. On Quiller, I like to just I like to flip over from my email to text on Quiller. I think I showed that earlier, so that then I can pair through, delete, adjust, add in the bits that are the most important for the text. Yes.
Great. Cool. Thank you. Um, how far ahead do you plan for your end of month?
Before the month starts, I'll plan my end of month when I do my beginning of month planning. So before the month even starts, I'll start thinking about what did really well, what we're testing in the upcoming end of month, if it has happened yet, it's the month before, in the upcoming end of month, and what cadence has worked. I think you should already plan to be sending every single day of end of month, and then from there, depending on how it did the previous month, testing and learning from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's never too early.
Yeah, for sure. It's so much work. Okay, we'll leave it for, if any last minute questions come in, we do have one more. So feel free to send during this answer, but then we'll kind of wrap it up after that. What circumstances have changed in the last couple of years that make it both harder or even easier to fundraise digitally?
Yeah, I think digital fundraising is a really cool animal in how different it is month to month. You will not show up and have the exact same things working for you every single month. So I think as more and more people are using email, are using text, are wading into different parts of digital fundraising, we really do see an expansion in the space. So I do think that means that breaking through and having successful email and text programs is more important than ever to make sure you understand who and why you're sending. It's not enough just to send a text saying the world is ending, donate $5.
Yeah.
The donors who are getting those text messages are getting text messages from a lot of people or getting emails from a lot of people, and a lot of people feel really helpless right now, and donating money is one of the ways that they can tangibly feel like they're trying to make a difference in this world. And if you can tap into that to help them feel like they're helping because they're helping you, I think that is the biggest thing as more and more people get into this space.
Amazing. Okay, great. And we did get one last question. Throughout this webinar, you've talked a lot about tried and true content, things that work repeatedly.
Yeah.
How do you keep that fresh?
Oh, good question. I think it's really easy in email programs, specifically, as well as text programs, to go back to your tried and true and to start from what has already worked. And that does work for a long time. To keep it fresh, I don't know if anybody else in school ever did this, but to stop plagiarism, we were told to read like what you're writing notes on, close the textbook, and then write out your notes of what you remember. So I think that's a great way to keep this stuff fresh. So you read the textbook, you're like, my donors love a first then now. So you take that first then now rather than just taking the first then now that you did last month and editing a couple of words through it. You're going to just completely start over. You're going to like brain dump what is actually happening first then now in this moment and go through it. Then feel free to go back and compare that to what has done well in the past and see if maybe you missed something. But having it be its own moment, its own content, instead of adjusting slightly until you have like a completely new thing, will give you fresh eyes, I think.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. We have both of our websites here down at the bottom, grassrootsanalytics.com and quiller.ai. You can find all this information and more about how to use our products and sign up on those websites. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar, and stay tuned in our weekly newsletter, GA Insider, to find more content like this coming at you soon. Thank you so much, Madeline.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, everyone. It was so great spending time with you.